Welcome to the Women Automotive Network interview series. I'm your guest host, Joan Michelson. I'm the host of Electric Ladies podcast and a former Chrysler executive in electric vehicles. And I'm now a career coach and I write for Forbes. So you can find me on electricladiespodcast.com or any social media platform. I'd like you to meet Jamie Zinser, who is Vice President, Global Sales and Marketing at Novelis and has over 28 years of experience in the automotive sector. Before joining Novelis, Jamie was Chief Technology Officer at Global Automotive Systems, where she was responsible for the same portfolio. Jamie was chosen as one of the top 100 leading women in North American automotive industry. Wow. In 2015, 2020, last year, recent, and as a 2019 Rising Star by Crain's Automotive News. And I think she's an engineer, right? You went to what is now Kettering University. I'm so excited.
That's correct,
so,
yes.
Thank you, Jamie. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're welcome. So let's start with a little bit about the industry itself. What is the number one trend that you are focused on today in the auto sector?
Well, so in general, it's not necessarily an automotive trend per se, but the one trend that I find very inspiring is the push to be more environmentally responsible. We're seeing many growing trends across various industries, not only automotive. We are seeing, consumer goods in recycled and more sustainable packaging. At Novelis, we offer, these to the cosmetics industry and others. Many companies are also making very significant net zero or aggressive pledges towards carbon neutrality. So such as, Walmart, Amazon, Apple, Samsung, and Novelis as well. And the list goes on. In automotive, the opening move here really was towards the reduction of tailpipe emissions. So you saw this with, you see the push for reducing now the end-to-end carbon footprint, meaning, how the raw materials themselves are mined all the way through the end of life of a vehicle. Electrification was the first step towards eliminating tailpipe emissions, but it also has enabled to, allow the OEMs to rethink their design in manufacturing processes and consider also a circular economy. So there's much consider now closed loop recycling during the manufacturing processes, as well as utilization of recycled alloys and other materials. And on the end of life, which is becoming more and more a hot topic, as you may be aware, many OEMs are engaged on these recycling initiatives. And every year in the United States, roughly about 11.5 million vehicles will reach their expiration date. And roughly, basically 3 million of these will be exported to other countries for reuse. But the remaining will stay in the United States. And then, some of them will be used for spare parts, but ultimately most of these vehicles will be shredded and then, basically put into the landfill. So there's really a need to understand, what are the technologies that would enable us to get these materials back into the circular economy and, bring those materials back for recycling purposes.
Yeah, that's great. I saw that on your website and I wanted to ask you about that. Do you find that you say it's a trend? Does that mean that the automakers are asking for more sustainable solutions? Like they're saying to Novelis, hey, we made this commitment to be net zero, help. Now what do we do?
Yeah, so it's I would say in general, obviously sustainability is key and a very key topic, but now you see the automakers digging into, here's our baseline, here's where we're at. Now, how do we work together in terms of waterfalling this out and working on various projects to get us to, our future goals? So it's, sometimes it's purchasing of green prime. Sometimes it's utilization of more recycled alloys. It's closed loop recycling. So taking the parts after they've been stamped and taking the scrap metal and reprocessing that. And now it's also become end of life of the vehicle. So how do we get those materials back into the system so that they can be utilized for future vehicle production?
Speaking of the whole life cycle, the auto sector has had a lot of supply chain issues lately, and obviously because of the pandemic initially, but there's also been other forces in the supply chain problem. And frankly, to the point of sustainability, it's also an opportunity to reduce the environmental impact of that supply chain at the same time, right? A lot of these automakers have supplier sustainability criteria, but they also ship in parts from someplace else, and that shipping in and of itself creates emissions, right? So talk a little bit about the supply chain issues in the auto sector now and what your clients are telling you about them.
I believe that the pandemic and the chip shortage has ultimately, helped the industry prepare for these types of situations. So I feel that, the industry as a whole is much more prepared.
So I want to talk about women in the auto sector. We are on Women's Automotive Network after all. And you and I are both women who have, you work still aggressively, obviously, day to day in the auto sector. And I cover it as a reporter. Why do you think more women have not advanced in the auto sector?
Yeah, I mean, as you are aware, I've been in this industry for almost 3 decades. And, I've seen some very significant changes over the years. We now see, some women in very key leadership roles, for instance, Mary Vera at General Motors, Linda Jackson at Citroen, Judy Hardy at BMW. So this is, this is very huge accomplishments for women in general, right? But now we have to acknowledge that there is much work needed to achieve balance. And personally, I think this has to start very early in childhood. And I was very fortunate to be raised in a family that didn't really adhere to any sort of gender stereotypes. If my dad was out, wrenching on the car, and he always encouraged me to sit by his side and he would teach me, how to rotate the tires, how to change the brake pads, how to gap his spark plugs. And so I really think that was really the start of my success, to be perfectly honest. And then, in addition, I think that it's critical to support early education STEM programs, such as I Love First Robotics. These types of programs help promote early engagement and interest in engineering and the sciences. And I think these types of programs have helped increase the number of females entering into the automotive workforce.
Oh, that's great. I love your story. That's really fun. Mine's on the communication side. My dad had an ad agency, and so I've been
so there you go.
I've been reading and writing copy since pre-birth. And by the way, he did a lot of advertising for car companies. Chrysler, Chevy, Pontiac. Yeah, my first car was a Pontiac Firebird because of his work for Pontiac. What do you think that a focus on, because you've talked about the industry really focused a lot on sustainability and reducing emissions, et cetera. Do you think that if women focused on, emphasize that in their careers in the women in the auto sector, do you think that would help or do you think that would hurt? I mean, where does that fit, if at all, in the opportunities in the auto sector for women specifically?
Yeah, well, I think women are a very powerful force. And I think, sustainability is important to all of us, of course, but as women and as mothers, we feel a very strong sense of duty to leave the world for our children and their children in a better place. So I personally think that women in sustainability is a very powerful force.
Okay, great. Tell us about a woman who inspires you.
You know, there's so many inspiring women out there. And just because, you know, we've had to deal with, you know, some of the challenges in society, right, along the way. And, you know, in history, you can name, gosh, like Mary Curie, who gave the ultimate sacrifice of her life in the name of science. You know, Susan B. Anthony was probably the original women's rights activist in the United States. Or I just recently watched a documentary on the plane of Jane Goodall. Oh my gosh, amazing woman, you know, an advocate for humans and animals and the environment. What an amazing person. But, you know, I honestly think that the most inspiring women are those living among us today. Those are the full-time working mothers, caretakers, and, you know, those that have actually ever experienced, which I do this almost on a daily basis, sitting at the kitchen counter late in the day, your laptop's there, you're wrapping up those last, you know, emails, packing lunches, feeding the dogs. Meanwhile, you're fielding your mother's questions on how to do something on Facebook. You know, I think those are the women who really inspire me, you know, those who've been so exhausted at the end of the day, but yet, you know, push forward to ensure their little ones' teeth are, you know, brushed, and, you know, the work agenda for the next day is set, and they're prepared for every meeting. And, you know, these are our sisters, our daughters, our neighbors, our coworkers, and our friends. And these are the women who inspire me.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. You know, how I don't have children, and how women with children do it is completely bizarre to me. I seriously have no idea. I mean, I have enough trouble juggling what I juggle without having small humans to worry about at the same time. And I just, every so often I stop and I think, okay, how do these women do it?
You need to surround yourself with very good people.
Yeah, I'm sure you need a support system, right? That's
Yes,
really
yeah.
cool. So, and finally, the Women's Auto Network really likes to end with one word that for advice for women. Like if there's one word, and I will say, if you give us one word, but also maybe give us some advice for women in their careers as well.
Yeah. Let me think about one word. But, you know, the advice that I normally give to most women is don't be afraid to take on that challenge, and, you know, be the first to raise your hand, even if you think it seems like a stretch goal for yourself, and it'll take you a very long way. So one word of advice is, what would it be? I guess be daring.
There you go. That's perfect. What a great line to end on,
two
too.
Words, but, you know.
That's okay. Be daring. Absolutely. Courage, right? You know, stand
Yes.
up. That's right. We keep coming up with two. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. This has really been fun on Women's Auto Network.
Joan.
You're welcome. Interview series. Jamie Zinser of Novelis, and clearly a role model for a lot of women. Again, I'm Joan Michelson of Electric Ladies Podcast. And we look forward to seeing you all in the future on the web and maybe at an event. I'm going to be speaking at the Women's Auto Network Conference Summit in June, too. I'm going to be emceeing a morning. Oh, cool. And I'll be doing a panel as well. So I'm really excited about that. Really fun.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Joan.
Take care. Have a great day.
Have a great day. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.